I decided I would start a YouTube channel. And so I did. The goal was just to get as many people as I could to know who I am. Said I ended up getting 750,000 subscribers between two channels, like 130 million views. Way more successful than I thought it would be. But I never wanted to be a YouTuber per se. I just started to solve a specific problem for me, which is that people didn't know who I am. And I also made a lot of money from it. I sort of knew that I was going to quit YouTube in the near future. As YouTube is winding down, I'm going to ramp up LinkedIn because generally that's how I like doing things.
I gotta ask, man. You seem very strategic about what you do, and I'm really curious about this. Was this strategic? Everybody's talking about you on YouTube.
After I quit, I did an interview. I didn't think anybody would see it. They did see it and they got really upset at me. So there's whatever, like dozens of videos about me with millions of views about what a terrible person I am and how I'm such a bad person because I just did YouTube for the money and blah, blah, blah. Especially with LinkedIn, one of the great things about it is like, you don't need a large audience to have a great business. You know, you could
Absolutely.
have a couple thousand followers, which is not a lot, and be killing it. So you don't have to sort of deal with all the nastiness that comes with being like a big public figure, which like it's not great. I'm not here to sell anybody on anything. I'm here to help people.
If you had to share a beginner's guide to LinkedIn, what would that be? If you don't know who Finn is, Finn built two highly successful YouTube channels, like totaling 760,000 followers, 100K followers on Instagram. And he just dropped everything to start fresh on LinkedIn. And now he's helping others, specifically entrepreneurs, grow on YouTube and LinkedIn. And there's one thing that Finn says that I find it myself. LinkedIn for creators is easy. Finn also has 20 years of marketing experience. He worked with brands like Nike, Element, and Red Bull before. Basically, Finn, I didn't know all of this about you before I invited you here. Then I started my research and I found a lot of noise about you. People are very upset on YouTube.
Yeah.
What made you give up everything, all that you built in the last 7 years, and actually start building on LinkedIn?
Well, so let me back up. The reason I started doing YouTube back in 2017 is because I found myself in a place where probably, you know, a lot of people listening to this would find themselves, which is at that time, I had been doing, you know, call it product design and product marketing for about 15 years and started out kind of in the agency world, did some stuff for brands like Nike, Nintendo, Red Bull in the beginning, and then moved on to some other agencies that did a bunch of work for like financial institutions that don't exist anymore, like Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers and stuff like that. You know, back in the 2000s, did a lot of, at the time I was writing a lot of code, doing a lot of like, websites and stuff like that. After that, I went to an industrial design and engineering agency where I probably did what I would say is like kind of the defining work where I really kind of learned this stuff, working on a lot of big brands, Procter and Gamble brands, primarily like Febreze, Swiffer, Bounce, Tide, you know, these just giant like consumer brands that, I think people in the SaaS world have no idea how big these businesses are. Like when I was working on Bounce, which is like fabric softener sheets, at the time they were doing 400 million units a year, of that little box of fabric softener. It's probably many times that now. Like the scale of that and like the complexity of that is crazy. After that, I worked for Abercrombie and Fitch doing design and marketing at a time when we were really kind of that was like the number one like mall brand in the world at the time. We were opening, you might have seen some of this stuff. We were opening a lot of flagship stores in Europe at the time, in like Barcelona and Madrid and Copenhagen and just all over like Western Europe and Asia. So I did that, spent a lot of time at factories there, also doing some like quality assurance kind of stuff, which is pretty interesting over in like China, Indonesia, Korea, stuff like that. And then went to that startup I mentioned, Creative Live, where we did online education for creative people, did a lot of cool stuff there too. And so I'd done, and I'd also done a lot of like writing. I mean, the whole time I started writing when I was like 15 years old. And so by the time I started YouTube, when I was, I think, 38, I had written thousands and thousands of blog articles, been published in a bunch of magazines, in addition to all the other stuff I said. So I feel like I did stuff that was pretty cool. But the problem is nobody cared. Like nobody knew who I was. I mean, I think anybody that worked with me probably thought I was good at my job, but nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared about me. I felt like my network was not good. I couldn't like get anywhere applying for jobs. It was just like bouncing off a brick wall. Just made no headway. And so I said, well, I got to do something about this. And it became obvious to me at the time, like I said, I'd done some blogging and stuff. I started out doing like print writing back in the day. I did blogging after that. And it became obvious to me that YouTube was sort of the place where, attention at scale was at that point. I noticed it when I went to Warp Tour in 2015, I think, which for anybody who doesn't know is like a alternative music tour kind of thing that would happen every year, and there'd be whatever 20 or 30,000 kids there, and so there'd be a tent where you could meet all the different bands, and so go get their autograph or whatever. So kids would line up at these tents to go get an autograph from their band. And I noticed the biggest lines by far were actually for YouTubers, not the bands. The YouTuber lines were like literally 5 times longer than the lines for the bands. I was like, whoa,
Impressive.
something is going on here. Because at that time, I thought of YouTube as being, cat videos and stupid vlogs.
Which year was this?
This is 2015. And and YouTube was, I thought it was like, it's for kids at the time, I thought. And then seeing these lines, I was like, okay, there's something more here. And so I paid attention to it, and I realized that YouTube had matured into something different. And so in 2017, when I was like sort of at this crossroads of like, man, I got to do something because like nobody cares about me. Nobody knows who I am and nobody cares. I decided I would start a YouTube channel. And so I did. The goal was just to get as many people as I could to know who I am. And so I started the channel. To make a long story short, like you said, I ended up getting 750,000 subscribers between 2 channels, like 130 million views, which is way more than I thought. If I could just get like 5,000 people, 5,000 views on my videos, like that'd be awesome. I'd be happy with that. And I ended up getting hundreds of millions, and way more successful than I thought it would be. But I never wanted to be a YouTuber per se. Like at the end of the day, I am a product designer and a product marketer. I never stopped doing that stuff. I'm also a partner in a company that does online education for music producers. So I do like product management. I never stopped doing that. I never wanted to be a YouTuber per se. I just started to solve a specific problem for me, which is that people didn't know who I am. And I also made a lot of money from it. And I was like, all right, I'm making 5 times more from this than I did at my last full-time job. I should probably keep doing this for a little bit. But I solved the problem that I started YouTube to solve. And so I was like, all right, time to move on. I joined LinkedIn in 2007, I think. Although back then it was very different from what it is now. Back then it was just basically your online resume, and you would like connect with people you worked with I'm like, I don't know why I'm connecting with these people, but I guess I will because that's what you're supposed to do. And so I didn't I had an account, but I probably logged in once a year or something like that. And then around 2020, I saw that it had evolved to more of a creator platform. And so I started posting on there a little bit, but it was very sporadic. I post like 3 times a week and then not for like 6 months or whatever. And I didn't really take it seriously. But I did have a link to my LinkedIn in the bottom of all my YouTube videos. And so even though I didn't really do anything with it for, all those years that I was on YouTube, I got maybe 7 or 8,000 followers or something just purely passively from LinkedIn. Now, are those the exact right ICP for me? Probably not. And that's a whole other conversation. But it did help me kind of hit the ground running. And so then when I started taking it seriously at the end of 2023, like I sort of knew that I was going to quit YouTube in the near future. And so I said, okay, well, as YouTube is winding down, I'm going to ramp up LinkedIn because generally that's how I like doing things. And so it sort of allowed me to hit the ground running a little bit. And so in 23, started ramping that up. And then in 24, I quit YouTube in September, I think. And so, that transition was like kind of doing 2 things at once. And that was a lot, but it worked out.
That's awesome. And I gotta ask, man, as a marketer, and I saw some of your content. You seem very strategic about what you do, and I'm really curious about this. Was this strategic? Everybody's talking about you on YouTube. Was this part of your visibility play?
No. So for anybody who doesn't know, like basically I did this interview after I quit. I did an interview that some people, where basically I just said, well, I said the same thing I just told you, is like, I did YouTube, to solve this problem and to make some money, and I solved the problem. So I quit. And It's a not a big channel, so I didn't even think anybody was going to see it. Like, to be honest, I did it to be nice to the guy because he's a nice guy, and so I said yes, even though I didn't think anybody would see it. For whatever reason, they did see it, and they got really upset at me. So there's whatever, like dozens of videos about me with millions of views about what a terrible person I am and how I'm such a bad person because I just did YouTube for the money and blah blah blah.
Well, that's
Um,
not all there
what,
is. I actually took a screenshot
well, I
from
didn't.
a comment.
I haven't watched any of them, to be
No,
honest. So
there's a lot of reaction videos to that interview, but yesterday I took a screenshot from one of those videos. I miss you, Finn. Where do you go? There's people who love you, man, and
okay,
who
well that's
miss
great. I'm happy to
seeing
hear
you
that.
there. Yeah, 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 absolutely.
I block anything that I see coming up about me on YouTube. I block the channel because like I don't want
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
it's
I get it.
very bad for your mental health to like experience. I've experienced more hate on the internet than probably anybody you will ever meet in your entire life. Like there are millions and millions and millions and millions of views on videos about what a terrible person I am. You can't pay attention to that stuff. It's horrible for your mental health. But yeah, so I would never do that. Like people, I don't know why people think like, oh, that was so smart that you did. I'm like, that was not my intention. Like I answered a
If
question
it was, it would
honestly.
have been smart. I mean,
No,
it
it wouldn't
was.
be. No, it wouldn't be smart. It wouldn't be smart. Like it's not smart. It's a terrible idea to like deliberately say things that are going to make millions of people angry. Is a terrible idea. It might not be a bad idea for your pocketbook. I mean, for your bank account, yes. Like if I mean, you can think of lots of people who run this playbook. You know, if you want to just get attention, yeah, just say things that make people angry. And you'll get a lot of attention for that. And you can find a way to monetize that. But is that like, do you think that's going to make you happy?
Michael O'Leary, the CEO of Ryanair, is a master at that. He says there's no such thing as bad advertising. So he just gets people talking about him.
Well, I think the people who are okay with that are, I mean, I don't know who that is, so I'm not going to like diagnose him, but like, if you're true, and I know some people who are like this that genuinely don't care. I know people who have like, you know, many, many, many millions of followers that genuinely don't care what people think about them. And these people are not well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I get it.
Like,
I get it.
if that's like, I totally reject the idea that it's smart to make people angry on purpose. I completely reject that. Now, it's okay. There's going to be times where you may have a point of view
Well,
that
it's
you
something I
understand.
would never do, but I do appreciate seeing the wits behind it, you know?
I don't. I completely. I think that's like midwit logic to think that like oh, playing 4D chess. It it will, trust me. It will not make you happy to
Yeah,
experience
yeah, yeah.
like having thousands and thousands of people say nasty things about you. You will not enjoy it. I promise. And if you truly don't care, you're a sociopath.
Yeah, you make a good point. Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of those people are like do have like psychopath like
And I mean, I never lived through it, and you did, and you lived through that all that hate online, so you know better than anybody.
most people. If you get one nasty comment on a post, it'll like rattle you for the day.
Yeah,
Now
that's true.
multiply that by hundreds for a decade.
Yeah, yeah.
If that's
And
what I
and
mean, if that's how you want to build your
especially
business, go
especially
for it. But
now
I don't think
that
you're going to like it.
yeah, especially now that the personal brand is more important than ever. I mean, uh whatever you do right now might give you some financial rewards immediately, but how is that going to pay off in 2 years from now? That's going to hurt for sure.
Well, there's more to life than money.
Yeah,
Like, do you want to be a person that just like attracts rage for money? No, you don't want it. That's no way to live. That's incredibly unhealthy. Like,
I
why do you
agree.
think everyone in Hollywood is so fucked up? X number of people in the world are crazy and unwell. And if there are, whatever, call it 1%, I don't know what the number is. But if you have 100 million fans, then that means 1% of them or 1 million people are unstable and unwell. And it's not enjoyable having that in your life.
But yeah, I can imagine.
Eh, Ben Affleck just did an interview with Theo Vaughn about this, where he said something about like, being rich and famous. He's like, why don't you just be rich? Like being famous sucks. So for anybody listening to this, there like you do not, especially with LinkedIn, one of the great things about it is like you don't need a large audience to have a
Yeah,
great business. You could
absolutely.
have a couple thousand followers, which is not a lot, and be killing it,
Yeah,
and no
yeah.
problem.
I'm running my business with 4,000 followers.
Yeah, I mean, for every business is different, but I don't know. For example, there's a guy I know who his audience is financial planners who typically run like family offices, that are managing tens of millions of assets. And he only has a couple thousand followers, but like think about how valuable that audience is, right? If he's the gateway, because there's not that many of those people, right? I mean, how many family offices are there like that in the US? Like, I don't know the number, but it's not a lot. And if he is the gateway to those people, for all these like financial institutions and stuff, for them to give him, tens of thousands of dollars in order to have access to this audience of people who, the lifetime value of them is in the millions, like best money they ever spent.
Absolutely.
So it's a little bit of, this is the reason why LinkedIn I think is so great, is because number one, the culture is just way better. People on LinkedIn like are by default like supportive and nice, as compared
Absolutely.
to literally everywhere else in the internet where by default they're like nasty and horrible. And the people who are on LinkedIn are very like high value people. So you can have a great business with a relatively small audience. And so you don't have to sort of deal with all the nastiness that comes with being like a big public figure, which like it's not great.
Yeah, people are here to do business.
Yeah.
This leads us to a question that I wanted to ask you. Are your all your clients coming from LinkedIn right now?
Yeah. A couple maybe from referral, and one person, I still work with the founder of Creative Live, who I've known for like 20 years. But yeah, like probably 95% of it is LinkedIn inbound.
Going viral makes reaches a huge broad audience, but then it loses relevance. The more people you reach, the less they're all interested in the same subject, right? So what are you going to sell to them? You
Right.
sell to them
So yeah,
the
and
pyramid scheme.
it's even true in the context. It's 100% true in the context of a business. Well, I shouldn't say 100, but there's a few examples of when virality might actually be good for business. But it is a fundamental, dynamic that the larger an audience gets, the lower quality it gets. Like that is just a fundamental,
Yeah,
that's a fundamental dynamic. And so for a business, you can the implications of that I think are pretty clear, but I think it's also true of creators. I've had lots and lots and lots of tweets and reels and stuff get millions of views, and it's so unpleasant every time because it reaches an audience. It's nice when it gets like one step outside your usual audience. Like, so if I normally get whatever 50,000 views on a reel, if I would get like 75 or 100,000, like that's nice. But when you get millions, then it's reaching people that are so far outside of your circle. They don't know who you are. They don't know anything about you. Like they have no respect for you or your audience. And so,
yeah, yeah,
very quickly the default reaction becomes negative. And so
yeah,
you just get a bunch of like nasty comments and people that are just there to basically dunk on you. It sucks. Like there's no business value there. Just it's really unpleasant. It makes you just want to put down your phone and not look at the internet for like a day until people forget about you and move on to the next thing to be mad about. Like
yeah,
it's going viral is just really not desirable. That said, if we're talking specifically about LinkedIn, I think their definition of viral is a little different than what a creator's definition of viral is. Like I hear people on LinkedIn say that their post went viral because it has like 800 likes. I would not consider that. I mean, it's all definitional, but to me, that's not not exactly viral. But so in that scenario, it might be good for you because 800 likes is still a pretty small audience, and so it could be pretty, still be pretty relevant. But once you start getting to like reaching millions of people, probably not very relevant.
yeah, absolutely. And actually, I've had a client of mine who was focused a lot on virality, and I kept telling him like, you're gonna lose relevance and you're gonna just lose conversions because we had a whole system with a lead magnet and people opting into his email list, and then actually we were getting automated sales, and all of a sudden he stopped getting
Mm.
subscriptions to the email list. He then started promoting a newsletter directly, like subscribe to my newsletter. But then even inside the email list, he lost relevance and we
Mhm.
couldn't sell to them anymore. So that was a very interesting case study.
Yeah, I'll give you another good example of this. Is the company I worked at before was a startup called Creative Live. It did online education for creative people, and I started I started when we were at our Series A, and did a Series B, and then some follow-ons. So we eventually raised like about 60 million bucks. And when I say we, I should say it was Chase, the founder. I mean, I was there for the ride, but Chase is the one that raised all the money. And we worked with a ton of like very big name influencers, like, people like actual, like Jared Leto is like an investor, like actual like mainstream celebrities, as well as a lot of, we'll call them like niche influencers, like photographers and stuff that are highly respected in photography, but you would have never heard of if you're not a photographer. And every single time we saw exactly what you're talking about happen. You would get, if we had one of these like, big name, whatever, like Mark Cuban or, Ariana Huffington or something like that on, or Richard Branson, everybody says, oh, wow, that's cool. But they really never move the needle, in terms of revenue, because like, what are you going to buy from Jared Leto,
Yeah,
other than a movie ticket, no disrespect to him,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it's just, but these photographers, I mean, the person that sold the most for us is a guy that had zero audience. He just happened to be a really good teacher. And so when we got him in front of an audience, people bought his classes. The sweet spot for us was people who are well known enough to have a good sized audience, but that audience is still focused enough to be super relevant. So, like, the person that I think probably moved the needle the most for us is Tim Ferriss,
Yeah.
because he's a well known guy for sure, got a big audience, but he's not, a Jared Leto or Richard Branson or something like that. So the people who follow Tim are like, they're
Yeah,
especially this
they're not
time. This is like,
generalists. They're not interested in everything that he has to
yeah,
say. There's just
especially 10 years
specific.
ago when we were working with them, that was especially true then. So yeah, I mean, this is the dynamic. It's like, it is completely pointless to chase reach for its own sake. Like, yes, obviously you need reach. People need to see your stuff, like that's an awareness is a necessary condition for sales, but chasing like broad reach, and I can talk about this more later. I've validated this so many times over the past like 15 years. It is completely pointless.
There's one thing that you mention a lot, and I read in your newsletters and stuff, that visibility, the importance of
Mhm.
visibility. But let's hold on that. All right. Why do you say LinkedIn is easy?
Well, I mean, I'm being a little facetious because, nothing worth doing is easy. But relative to other platforms, LinkedIn is easy mode. I don't know if that's going to be true forever, but it still is for now. So the reason I say that is, think about, let's say you want to get big on TikTok. Think about who your competition is. It's like every like good-looking 19-year-old with a ton of free time and the willingness to just, be ridiculous on the internet for attention, right? So huge number of people, and if you can't compete with like literally the best looking, most charismatic people in the world, like that's your competition. That's tough. Or on YouTube, it's all these people who are like actual professional creators with a team of, like I had 3 editors, for example, between my 2 channels and my short form content and stuff. People have been doing it for a long time with, they're making probably millions of dollars a year off it. So that it's like a real business. So you're competing with like professional creators. Can you
Yeah.
be successful there? Yes, but it's hard, right? And there's tons of people who want to be TikTokers and YouTubers. If you're on Twitter, you're competing with, politicians and celebrities and really well-known journalists and stuff for attention. Or OnlyFans girls, also hard to compete with. Um, but LinkedIn, the people on LinkedIn are typically like not professional creators. There's very few of them that have like a team behind them. It's mostly just one person with a day job, who's just sort of making content when they can. And, most of them are like kind of not really like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to put myself out there a little bit. So there's a lot less competition, and the competition that does exist, I'm not saying this in a judgmental way to put them down, but they're just less sophisticated as creators versus other platforms. So I don't know what the number is exactly, but I think it's something really, really small, that like only like 2% or something of LinkedIn users post, I think even once a month.
Once a week is 1%.
Yeah, there you go. So it's a tiny fraction of people are making content on a regular basis. And making content is only one way of being active on LinkedIn. Commenting is a really good one. But again, not many people are commenting. More people are commenting than creating, but still a relatively small number. And the people who do comment, a lot of it is not super high value stuff, right? So if you're leaving thoughtful, substantial comments, you're already like in the top like 1% of the top 1%. And same for DMs. Like everybody here gets DM'd like annoying, spammy pitches, right? But if you get a message from someone that actually seems like a normal, cool person that's telling you about something relevant, that talks like a normal human, that's gonna stand out, right?
Yep,
So like
absolutely.
again, just by being like a normal person saying normal things and just being consistent and active, you're in the top 1%.
Especially the more people try to hack the algorithm and add AI comments, the more your real comment stands out, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. Again, anything valuable is hard. So I'm being a little bit facetious, but relative to the other platforms where you could be a creator, LinkedIn is for sure the easiest one. And it's also the highest value. So to me, it's like, that's amazing. What a great combination. That's like, it's almost like too good to be true. It's easy and you can make the most money. Sign me up.
Yeah, especially B2B. I mean, it's 80% of all B2B deals start on LinkedIn. Did
Wow.
you
I
know
believe
that?
it.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Right now, are you only active on LinkedIn, or do you still post on other?
I post on Instagram a story very occasionally, but like basically don't post anywhere else.
All right. So all you're doing is LinkedIn. Okay. If you had to share, like, let's say, like a beginner's guide to LinkedIn, what would that be?
So first thing is you want to figure out, we'll call it your positioning, but just basically like what are you selling and who are you selling it to and why would they want to buy it? Which is, it seems like an obvious question, but that's actually pretty tough to answer for a lot of people.
It is.
And so the way I would think about that at the most basic level, we'll think about it in the context of optimizing your profile, but the work you do here to optimize your profile or to your tagline rather will apply in lots of other places. So think about it. If your tagline should have two pieces, one is your offer, which is what you sell and who you sell it to. The second piece is what I call the persuader, which is the reason why they would buy it. So for example, and you want to say that your offer should be in the most clear, concise language that leaves absolutely no questions in the mind of the person who is looking at it, because you have maybe a couple seconds. Like if someone's scrolling through their feed and they either see your post or see a comment or something, if let's say you leave a thoughtful comment, the first thing you're gonna do is like, oh, okay, that person's pretty smart. What's she all about? Well, look at your headline. If your headline, yeah, they will call that, like a Procter and Gamble will call that the first moment of truth. You have like a couple seconds where you either win them or lose them. And so it should be just the most absurdly intuitive, clear language you can possibly come up with. So, what do you do? Who do you do it for? Like SEO for D2C healthcare companies, whatever. Like just make it as crystal clear as possible. Do not try to get clever. Don't try to get fancy. Run that by a few people to get their feedback on like, hey, does this make sense? Do you think this describes what I do? Don't worry about capturing every nuance. Just get it super clear. That's the first part of the offer. The second part is the persuader, which is why would people like what basically why should people buy from you? So there's a couple different ways that could work. One could be like, I would say the best version of that is like demonstrated proof of results. Like, so, whatever X revenue generated, or, so many 300 clients helped since 2017 or whatever it is. Like if you can drop a big number, that's generally ideal. But if you don't have that, that's okay. A second way you can do that would be like how you do it. So again, if it's SEO for, D2C healthcare startups or whatever, what is the particular methodology that you use that's different? And like, I don't know what that would be off the top of my head, but you know,
Yep. Yep.
whatever you can think about that. And then the third one would be who you are. And I would say this is sort of an order of preference, but not always. But so, for example, one of my clients is he does like product strategy slash user research, and he was a cop for like 10 years. And so his sort of research methodology is informed by, the work he did as a cop. And so like that could be your differentiators, like, a former Metro police detective for 10 years, right? So offer plus persuader, and figure that out. That's the place to start. And then once you figure that out, that's going to sort of guide all the other things that you do, whether that's making content, whether that's leaving comments or sending DMs. Like, it should all ladder up to that, more or less. That's the place to start. Like, figure out what are you selling, who are you selling it to, and why would they care?
Yeah. And then what's your activity? What do you do every day on LinkedIn?
So the second thing to do is to figure out what your goals are in terms of specific business objectives. So typically that's going to be revenue, but there are times when it won't be, but typically it will be. And the reason this is important is because that's going to sort of dictate all your other choices. In other words, if let's say you sell some sort of enterprise SaaS product where the sales cycle could be 12 to 18 months, but the average contract value might be $5 million. Well, maybe you only need one deal a year to have a great year, right? On the other hand, there are people who sell courses and maybe you need to sell 1,000 of them a year to have a good business. And so those are going to take you in very different directions, meaning if you want to sell courses, then you need to reach a very large number of people, which is going to dictate the type of content you make and how often you make it. Like, you're going to have to make very accessible stuff. You're going to have to do a lot of it because you got to reach thousands and thousands of people in order to sell 1,000 courses over a year. Whereas if you're selling, enterprise SaaS, well, how many people are there that are going to buy this, $5 million SaaS package? Probably not that many. Let's say you're selling it to like hospital administrators. Getting back to what we were talking about earlier, there is zero value in reaching, marketers in Singapore if you're selling to hospital administrators in the US. So you would want to so as far as like what your specific activity is, that depends on what your goal is. So if I was selling to those hospital administrators, well, I would probably get Sales Navigator and I'd spend a lot of time making a list of exactly who these people are. And then I would figure out like, well, what's the best way for me to make myself known to them? There's a nice filter in Sales Navigator, which is like active on LinkedIn. If you like, there's a little thing you have to do to like, it says like show more options or whatever, it's in there. So I think commenting is and so find people who are active on LinkedIn and then comment on their stuff is probably a really good place to start. And I say that because I think commenting is usually the highest leverage thing that people can do, because it takes much less time than creating content. And I would say it's arguably just as valuable in a lot of cases, because your goal is like, people get lost in these sort of numbers, like how many impressions did I get and rah, rah, rah. And that matters, but your goal is to be visible with the kind of people you want to do business with, right? That's the goal. Yeah. And there are lots of ways to do that. One way is creating content, but that's only one way, and hope that they find your content and see, sort of inbound. That's cool. But another way is just to go, if they made a post, go comment on it, because, creators get hundreds of comments on their post. And so, you'll feel like you're sort of lost in the crowd there, and maybe you are, but, these hospital administrators probably are getting 5 comments on their posts. So if you're one of the 5 and you do that consistently, they're going to notice that. And if you're a thoughtful, it's basically, this is like, account-based marketing, essentially. It's like, it's building a relationship with somebody, right?
Exactly. Becoming visible. I mean, top of mind.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's hard, the details matter on who you are and sort of what your objectives are, but the goal is visibility. How do you become visible with the people you want to do business with? Lots of different ways to do that, but that's the goal. And then, from there, we move them down the funnel, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and if you're posting content, I mean, commenting on the right people is also going to get them to see your content. So it's like targeting your content. It's almost like advertising, that you can actually target who's going to see your content. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, it's great.
And that's it. And then how'd you get them to meet you on a call or something like this? What's your process?
Well, I rely completely on inbound. If I ever need to do outbound, I will, but I haven't yet in terms like I don't pitch people. Well, I pitch people very occasionally. If so, how do you get people to get on the call with you? Well, there's basically two ways: inbound and outbound. So if you want to inbound, you should tell people that it's okay to book a call, like ask people to book a call with you, like have it in the footer of all your posts or tell or in the like you got to tell people because otherwise like they won't like people won't know unless you tell them that you are actively looking for people to book calls with you, right? Now that doesn't guarantee that they will do it, but you have to make sure that they're aware of that, and you have to do it a lot because people are, cognitive misers is a good way of putting it. People do not want to spend brain cycles unless they don't have to. So make sure people are aware that they can book a call with you. And then hopefully you'll get some inbound. If you're not getting enough inbound, well, then the other way to do that is outbound,
Outbound.
which, like I said, I don't really do much of that. I will if I need to. I've certainly done it in the past. But at this point, I don't really need to do that much of it. So I don't think I would be like the world's biggest authority on outbound.
Yeah, we've posted a few episodes on both on outreach, sales calls, and all of that. We have entire guides on it. So if you wanna look at it, we have I'm gonna post here just a link to our Substack, and you can just go and check the other episodes out. There's guides on both sides of the spectrum, outbound and inbound.
But what I'll
But
say
yeah,
is like the way I think about this, and maybe I'm lucky because I care about my work and I like it, and I want to help people. Like fundamentally, I enjoy helping people. There's like very few things in life that are more enjoyable or rewarding to me than knowing that I helped somebody figure out a problem in their business. Like that's really rewarding and fun to me. And I also like I genuinely enjoy getting to know people. I love hearing about just about anybody's business. I don't care what you do, like whether you're a landscaper or a surgeon or a fucking, an email. I don't care. Like I love hearing about like I enjoy hearing about people's work, which maybe that's boring, but if I'm a whatever, my wife's, works Christmas party, I find out that someone has a business like cleaning gutters. I'm like, oh, tell me about that. How do you find customers? Like what's the hardest part of your business? How do you hire people? Like
you're like
so
me. You're a marketing nerd, so you need to know
it's just business. I
yeah.
mean, like marketing is where I focus, but at the end of the day, like it's like make the good line go up and the bad line go down. That's my job. Um, the reason I focus on marketing is because making the good line go up is generally the hardest thing for people. And if you have revenue, you can all the other problems kind of solve themselves. And if you don't have revenue, optimizing the bottom line is rearranging deck chairs in the Titanic. But so with regard to like outreach and stuff like that and commenting, I just look at it as like I want to make friends and meet interesting people and try to help them.
Yeah, I love it.
Genuinely, like I never like I don't try to sell, like I'm not here to sell anybody on anything. I'm here to help people.
Yeah,
And if
I
that means
agree.
I can help them, awesome. If it means I connect to them with someone else, that's cool. Like it doesn't matter to me. I know that if I help people, then ultimately, it's going to come back to me.
Yeah, I love that mentality. I hate outbound outreach. It's not my thing. I don't. I feel very uncomfortable like reaching out to someone I don't know. It's different to write someone I know and have a conversation. I love
Yep.
conversations. I love this
But
conversation.
but think about it this way. Um, if someone else reaches out to you, you're actually probably that's actually probably you like that, right? If they're a cool
Yeah,
person
yeah,
and like it's
yeah,
not like an annoying pitch, like that's actually a good experience to get a DM
yeah.
from someone new. You're like, oh, cool. Like this person I don't know, like took the time to
Absolutely.
talk to me. Awesome.
Yeah, I once someone commented on one of my posts with the problem that they had with their email marketing and stuff, and I reached out to him and I sent a DM and I said, "Look, I really feel I can help you with this. If you want to get on a call." It's like, but it was so natural. It was my need to help him with something that
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
knew I'm really good at, and then he said,
Yes.
"Look, I'm gonna get on a call with you just because your outreach was so good." And I was like, "Did I just do outreach? I was." It was so weird, man. It
Yeah.
was very natural, you know?
Exactly. So that's what I was going to say is like, I don't do outbound. I don't exactly, and I don't pitch people exactly, but I do what you said, which is if I see that someone has a genuine need and I believe that I can help them, I'm going to DM them. but it's not like, to me, that's not outreach, because like I don't have a spreadsheet of prospects that turn into leads, the blah blah, like all that stuff, which that works for some people. No disrespect, like I get, like that is a totally valid way of doing things, is not how I do things. And I don't think most people want to do things that sort of like real like boiler room sales kind of thing. I actually totally respect that, because that like respect, like that's a fucking grind and it's hard and I respect it, but it's not what I want to do. And I don't think most other people want to do it. But I think just reaching out to people when you genuinely believe you can help them and talking to them like a normal person, like I think that's pretty attainable, and it's very, very, very effective. Like you said, you're like, hey man, I saw that thing you posted about email marketing. Like, this is not a pitch, but like I've done this many times before. I'd love to get on a call with you and like I can talk you through it.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that approach. I love the way you think about this, man. So in tune. Okay. I have one last question. It's a fun one, but it's a new one. I've never done this before. All right. You lost everything. You lost everything, all your accounts, your business,
Happened to
everything.
me many times in my life. Yes.
And you have 90 days to start making enough to pay the bills and feed your family. What's the plan?
Well, exactly what we just said. Like, what am I selling? Who am I selling it to? Why would they buy it? How am I getting to get in front of them? And
Yeah,
then
but like,
fucking
would
start
you use
grinding.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, I would. I mean, that's not the only way to do it, but I would, because that's a tool that I know. But there's other people that, depending on your business. So like, for example, there's a lot of business owners that like are not really on LinkedIn. Like basically most SMBs are not really very active on LinkedIn. So, talking about like, let's say, the gutter cleaning business, or like a HVAC installer or something like that. They might have a multi-million dollar business, but they don't really use LinkedIn. So how do you get in front of those people? Well, probably going to like, trade shows, or, associations or conferences or something like that. It's probably a better way to get in front of them. So I don't want, LinkedIn is not the, one solution to all problems, but if you're in B2B, it probably is, or especially like B2B, like marketing, it's probably the best place to go. But yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah. So basically, who can you help? How can you
yep.
help them? Get in front of them.
Yep. And that might mean, so for example, when I did design before, I mean, when I did graphic design for years, like it was before, I mean, the internet existed, but it wasn't like it is now. Instagram didn't exist. LinkedIn was maybe around, but people didn't use it that way. So like I would physically mail packages with my work in it to people I wanted to work with. I could have emailed them, but I mailed it to them because I knew that would stand out, because there's 50 other people that might be emailing them, but I'm the only person that like mailed them
Yeah.
something
Most
physical.
people don't think like that.
Yeah. So now that was more work, but again, like you were, imagine, put yourself in their shoes. Like if someone mailed you, again, not to their house, to their office, but like if someone mailed you, a package with their work in it, you'd be like, damn, this dude like mailed. Okay, cool. You have my attention. You're instantly going to go to the top of that stack.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 All right. We're talking that you're only on LinkedIn, but that's not 100% true. You have an email list. You have a
Yeah.
newsletter. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I
Yeah.
read your newsletter. It's pretty good stuff. So basically, what's the most valuable means of communication medium that you use?
Well, I think it's LinkedIn. I don't know, attribution for me is like pointless. It's a pointless exercise for me. It makes sense for like an ecom company for sure, but for me, it's silly. So I don't know where people find me. I don't really care, I guess. Like, I don't know. I could put
Gotcha.
more thought into that, but I don't.
Yeah, yeah, gotcha. The reason I asked this question is for me, the email list is the foundation for everything else. Everything feeds the email list, and the email list is what feeds the rest of the pipeline.
Yeah, that's for sure the case for a very, very large number of people. So I think that's a great game plan.
All right, awesome.
To everybody, the opportunities are going to go to the people who are the most well known, not necessarily the people who are the best at it or who quote unquote deserve it, right? Like I found this when I was a designer. There's a lot of people who are maybe not the world's best designers, but they're very good at promoting themselves, and that's where the opportunity is going to go to. Because like, how would anybody even know that you exist? They can't give you an opportunity if they don't know you exist, right? And so just simply being top of mind, being the first person that people think of for what you do is like probably the most valuable thing in business, right? For example, like the attorney that I use, I know of him because he posts a lot of interesting stuff on Twitter about sort of, influencer and e-commerce law, which is what I've used him for. And he just, it literally was top of mind. And we had a situation where we needed legal review on something. I was like, why don't I DM Rob? Maybe he'll do it. And he did. And I've worked with him several times over the years just because he made content about this and I didn't know who else to call. And he seemed smart and he is, and it was awesome. And I'm glad it worked out that way, but it's literally just that he was the first person I thought of when we needed it. Rob, I did not mean to imply that you were not the best because he is actually awesome. Unfortunately, if you think that simply being great at your work, sitting back and being humble and waiting for people to recognize you, like, well, people will see it. They're not going to see it. You got to make them see it.
Yeah,
And
I've
that's
been
just the
there
way it
many
is.
times.
Yep.
I've suffered from that many times.
Yep. We all have.
Yeah. Amazing. I love it, Finn. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Of
This
course.
was
Thanks for having me.
amazing, awesome conversation. If you want to find the summary of this, you'll have the important notes and the whole episode on the Substack that I put there, createandearn.com /SM. Then you can listen to us or follow us on Spotify, wherever your podcast platform is, or YouTube. But the Substack is where everything is centralized there.